Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transforming Today's show. I am Rebecca Weintraub, your host, and today we have guest AliceAnn Loftus. How are you, AliceAnn?
I am great. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Awesome. And AliceAnn and I, we already have like the giggles going on, so just bear with us. So AliceAnn, tell everybody what you do with your coaching.
So I work with women and helping them to develop their leadership skills and be more effective leaders in the various roles that they have in life.
And that's so needed today, I think. We'll get into that, but I love that you do that. I think it really contributes to just a meaningful society, especially for women. So I love it. What ignited that spark to be invested in that and build your business around it?
Well, as a woman who has juggled a lot in my own life, I really started to look within, how to be more effective in my life. And there's a lot of information out there on how to lead others. But what I was coming up with is that we really have to apply that leadership development in how we lead ourselves. And when we develop true self-leadership and lean into our authenticity, that's where the magic happens and we actually do become more effective in all the roles that we play.
Okay, so define your definition of self-leadership. What does that mean?
So to me, self-leadership is really leaning into your authenticity and embracing who you are, learning how to listen to yourself, tap into your intuition, empower yourself by understanding your core values, your strengths, but using those strengths to engage in life in ways that feel authentic to you, where you can show up as your best and really focus on your own passions and life mission and purpose, and recognize what drives you in life so that you are showing up as your best self, regardless of the role that you're playing, whether it's a mom or a CEO or, whatever it is. If you're showing up as your best self, you can be effective.
Okay, so when you work with your clients, are you using a methodology that you came up with?
Well, yes and no. I have quite the toolbox, so to speak, of things that I use. We do some value mining, where we identify what your core values are and how they're showing up in your life and how they might be being challenged. Do some exercises on tapping into your intuition. What are your thoughts, your daily thoughts? What's going on in there, that either negative self-talk or what's pulling you? Our intuition often leads us to our passion if we really listen to it, and understand if there's conflict going on inside of ourselves. So I have a process that I go through, but it's also very, I guess, authentic in that it's led by the client of where are they wanting to be more effective and where are their values showing up in that process.
Okay, so I assume, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I assume you went through some kind of transformation around this so that you could be an expert, so to speak, in leading your clients. Can you tell us a little bit about that transformation?
Well, I have been a hyperachiever my entire life. So finding myself in leadership roles was not uncommon, whether I wanted to be there or not. I just was on this trajectory of achieve, achieve, achieve. And I found that I was allowing the judgment of others or the expectation of others to determine how I showed up in leadership. And it came more from a place of pleasing or caregiving or trying to live up to expectations. So even though I was maybe at the top of my profession or on the outside appeared to have it all together, there was like a constant storm inside. Perfectionism played into it because I was constantly measuring my worth on what others valued as perfect or worthy. And so while on the outside it can appear to look very successful, on the inside it doesn't feel very fulfilling or true. And that's not a happy way to live. And it wasn't until I started to apply what I knew about leadership to myself, you know, if they say, okay, to be a good leader, you have to listen to your team. Okay, to lead yourself, I have to listen to what my values are, what my heart's telling me, my heart and my head. And so going through that transformation and seeing how applying self leadership played in my own life, I was able to really live authentically and with purpose and fulfillment. And that takes you to a whole other level of effectiveness that I just wasn't achieving by learning how to lead others.
So when you went through that period of bridging the gap, so to speak, what what was that like to begin and be in the process, and then what it looked like on the other side when you really got to a point of where things started looking in that 360 kind of holistic view in your entire life?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. It was painful. It was a total process of falling apart, unraveling everything. When you have based your entire life on the value others put on you, and you have to look within to determine your own value, it's very hard to do that. And so you can actually feel like you have no value because you have nothing to even judge it against, because it's just you. And so, the analogy I use a lot with my clients is it's like you have to crack a little bit. You have to struggle. If you think about everything in nature that goes through authentic growth, butterflies, lobsters, seeds, they all have to break a little bit. They have to have that struggle to get their strength and to really come out of it. So my initial steps in this did not look successful. They looked like I was falling apart. But through that falling apart, that's where the transformation really came, and the grit and the resilience and the compassion and empathy for self, and to be your own cheerleader, to keep going. I guess I call that my magic sauce, the magic space. The falling apart is really coming together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That should be a book title or something.
It probably is.
So let's talk about perspective for a second. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but let's say you're eating a bunch of pizza and cake and high caloric and high sugar fat kind of foods, right? When you eat a piece of broccoli, if you measured that on a scale or a ruler, the pizza is going to be 12, right?
Yeah.
But the broccoli,
first.
yeah, the broccoli compared to that is going to be a 2, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to stop eating the sugary foods, now you have this new perspective, you have this new scale. On top of that, your taste buds are changing, right? So when you eat the broccoli, now that broccoli might be more like an 8.
Yeah. It's just shifting your perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
So taking that concept.
Now when you eat pizza, you feel like crap. Am I allowed to cuss on here?
Do whatever you want.
A lady with the mouth of a sailor. So
softer swear words rather than
got it.
big ones. But
you here. But
yeah, we were to take that perspective, right, and apply it to what you were just saying. I assume that shifting that perspective around your values, which once were someone else's, now are yours. So in terms of sort of that analogy or that concept of perspective, how did it shift in that period of time?
Well, I had to shift it in retraining how I thought and felt about myself and the world that I was in. You know, when you stop looking for validation and you lead with your core values and confidence in yourself, you know, this is really important to me, this is what I want, um, and you start to look for the benefit of that, so celebrate the small successes along the way. It's just patience. And patience is not my virtue. So I really struggled with patience and keeping my eye on what was important to me, and um, also embracing the discomfort. You know, when we eat a piece of broccoli, we don't start eating the broccoli unless we really love broccoli, but you don't start eating it because you're craving broccoli. You know, if you are, call me, we could make $1 million, but but if you're, you have to train yourself. You have to say, I'm eating the broccoli because it's healthy. It fuels me with this. And that's the same thing with changing your thoughts and beliefs on self-care and self-leadership. In, I'm doing this because it's good for me, because I'm breaking habits, I'm retraining the mind, um, and understanding the value of the change of the broccoli. But and then and it just becomes something that you understand is good for you, and you, the longer you stick to it, the more benefits you see.
Mm.
So it just snowballs from there. And then when you, let's say you've been doing really, really well, and you slip back into the old thinking, just like eating that pizza that you haven't eaten in a long time, we all know how we feel the next day or immediately after we eat the pizza. We don't feel good. We don't feel good. We feel that toxicity inside of us again, you know. And the food analogy really resonates with me. I mean, I've struggled with food my whole life. So um it, right here. But it is, it's the same. You know, I was speaking with a client yesterday about personal training, and it's, you're just retraining different muscles to activate. You know, if you've been doing a squat wrong the whole time, after a while you're going to have some knee pain, right? And you have to relearn how to do the exercise so that you're activating the right muscles, so that you're getting the full benefit of the exercise. Same thing with coaching on self leadership and retraining yourself. You're just activating the right thoughts and muscles.
So let's talk in terms of like characteristics for a second,
Okay. Mhm.
because I have a belief that we are born with our unique characteristics and
Mhm.
we cannot get rid of them. But we can highlight some of them, and we can like mute or you know, reduce or quiet other characteristics. And I think when we go through this like self exploration, part of that is identifying which characteristics we do want to lead with and which ones we want to, you know, not give so much attention to.
Mhm.
And so I'm wondering, when you went through this transformation and you're talking about like, you know, unplugging the synapses and plugging them in a different space and thinking differently, what characteristics for you came forward as the ones that you were leading with?
Well, that's really interesting that you categorize it that way. You know, I'm certified in Myers-Briggs, which I, years ago I thought that was like the end all be all in helping people identify who they are and how they show up in life, right? And when we, if, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but that you get your four little letters and you're like, oh, great, I'm an introvert, I'm a judger, I'm a feeler, I'm a, you know, great, what do I do with that? And we think that we lead with those characteristics. Well, true and false. It's, we have those characteristics, but actually what we lead with are our perceptions,
Hmm.
which, that's subjective. It can be altered. So I'm naturally an introverted person, which always surprises people when I tell them that I'm an introvert, but
Mm.
that's what Myers-Briggs told me. And so if I approached life through the quote unquote introvert characteristics, my life probably would be very different than it is now.
Mm.
But recognizing that shouldn't, it just gives you an awareness of who you are and where your strengths are. But when you also bring in your perspectives and your core values and you know your past experiences, your assumptions, interpretations, self-judgments, limitations, they all shape our reality.
Mm.
So it's, understanding your characteristics is, your natural characteristics, what you're born with, is only part of the picture. So what I do is I help my clients see the whole picture and then be purposeful and intentional in how they choose to move forward with that. So as an introvert who also values um, growth, helping others, I'm an educator. To be effective in those things, I had to say, okay, what modes of modality, or what's going to best suit that,
Mhm.
but what's also going to block me from that, and what perceptions do I either need to strengthen or purge that are keeping me
Mm.
from reaching my own success. But what's the real question is, what's most authentic to me? And
Mm.
we can't identify what's authentic to us until we see the whole picture of who we are innately, and who we are through our past experiences and perceptions.
So this might sound like a funny question, but like you're making me think of a puzzle, right? Like all these, like you're talking about all these pieces, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
can't not think of a puzzle. And I'm wondering, like, the way that you approach it with your clients,
Mhm.
is it piece by piece, or is it let's look at where we're going? Like when I do a puzzle, it's most helpful to look at the box where the picture is, and then it's easier to put everything in place. What approach do you take? Is it just starting with the little pieces and then it builds the puzzle, or do you paint a picture and then you fill in the pieces with your client?
So that's interesting. I've never looked at it as a puzzle. And so as you're giving me that analogy, I'm thinking there's no picture because it's constantly changing.
Hmm.
It's constantly changing. You're painting the picture yourself. And some days you might pick up the paintbrush and you want green instead of purple. And sometimes you're painting something and you thought you were painting a tree, but as you got working on it, you realized that the tree was just a symbol of something, and your picture has much more depth to it.
Hmm.
And then you go back the next day and you're like, yeah, I think I'm just going to go back to painting the tree. And that's okay. So it's not so much a puzzle, but a toolbox.
Oh, wow. I love this. I never thought about it like that way.
It's a toolbox.
My brain is very creative, but it's also very structured. And I usually
Mhm.
have a balance of both. And I need that certainty
Mhm.
sometimes to like know what I'm like, I throw something out there. Like I want to do Transforming Today show. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's what I want to do. And somehow it happens, right? So that's normally how I operate. But to not have that certainty of what you're necessarily going for,
Yeah.
that is exciting to me and scary at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, how do you coach your clients through something that they might perceive just like I am?
Yeah. Well, they're creating their own life and there's no judgment on it. As any artist, anyone who's expressing themselves, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And I guess that's why with a puzzle, there's a definite answer to that. Um, and I don't know what pieces you have. Where when we're painting our own canvas, only you know what tools you have. Only you know what can come out. And each canvas as it completes is unique to its owner.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, right? It's customized. I love the word customized because our world is so customized these days, right? And I like that, right? So let's take a case study. Okay.
Okay.
So this doesn't necessarily have to be a client of yours. This can just
Okay.
be like someone we're making up. But let's say they have a life where they are an executive, they do have children, they have service that they do on the side, they might have a family member who needs extra attention because maybe physically they're not in the greatest condition,
Mhm.
and so on and so on and so on. So we take we take a person like that and they come to you
Mhm.
and walk us through walk us through what you would do on a high level, what you might do with that person and for that person.
So we would do some value mining, which means deep digging on what their core values are. And I'll share with you mine. When I first did this, my top three core values are intimacy, appreciation, and growth.
Mm.
So, and someone will say, well, how does that apply to the businesses that you own to be intimate? You know, you can't be intimate, it's business. And I'm like, but that's how I run my business. And that's what makes my business. People know that when they come to business with me, and I'm talking about my separate business, I own private preschools.
Mhm.
So I value a deep intimacy with not just my families and their children, but with my teachers, with my staff, with the community. And so I lead with that core value of me being intimate with those I work with and those that I serve. Intimacy is first and foremost,
Mm.
a deep connection in that. And so I would talk my clients through recognizing how their values fit into their role, where they show up. And so, and also where they're challenged. So, intimacy, I struggle with intimacy in running my preschools, working with the state. You know, you're not always speaking to the same person, you don't have relationships, you don't, it's inconsistent. So I never feel like I'm getting anywhere close to anybody to help me through that. And so that really challenges me, right? And so recognizing how I can get in front of that and develop that intimacy in a way that serves me, that feels best to me, that just because someone or an outside situation challenges that, it shouldn't alter how I show up. You know, I'm still going to choose to keep that and to honor that value.
Mm.
And that's the same thing that I do with my clients. So regardless if they're the CEO of their family or they're owning a boardroom, I ask them, what are your core values? And with that core value, how will you honor that? How are you going to show up living with your core values? How is that navigating your life? So, you know, bringing that back to what you asked, you know, how to work with my clients, that's the first thing we do is we're gonna identify your core values, and then identify your perceptions. You know, how are you showing up in the world? How engaged are you? How well are you listening to yourself? What cycles or patterns are you on? What serves you, what does not serve you? And how do you react to stress? How do you, you know, what are your triggers or your hot buttons that either shut it down or cause you to go into defense? And recognizing those triggers, they can then identify, you know, when I'm in that space,
Mhm.
I'm not leading with my core values. I'm not showing up as my best self. And then they can make a conscious and intentional decision on how they want to move forward with that. It's very empowering.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Even just listening to you, it's like it's intense, but in like a cleansing way and a
Mhm.
clarifying way. And um, it sounds like, deep work, but but necessary work if we
Oh.
want to be our best selves, right? And so, you know, you and I did a little work a number of months ago, and I came to you because I said, I don't know who I am from the outside in. Like,
Mhm.
I really know who I am from the inside out. I mean, I've been in therapy like since I was 2, literally, right? So it's like I've done a lot of self-exploration, and I'm really good at being like at like analyzing myself and growing that way. But I didn't have the perspective of like, what am I giving off? Like how am I showing up and how is the world receiving me?
Mhm.
And it was really helpful to do that work because even like with Transforming Today Show, like when I have to edit each episode,
Mhm.
it's like I have to watch myself
Mhm.
on my show. And even that tool of like seeing how I'm showing up here is so very helpful. So I'm wondering, when it comes to your clients, how much of that exterior to interior perspective, if you will, is incorporated into the coaching that you do, and if it is, how valuable is that to the client?
So that's a great question. And when you and I worked together, I hadn't yet gone through, so I just completed positive psychology, which gave me a lot of the tools that I use now. I've modified them to kind of fit my own style, but that's where I got the value mining and the, um, I talk about saboteurs, understanding the little gremlins that sit on our shoulders and do all the little moaning and groaning and nitpicking at you. But recognizing how we are putting ourselves out there is really in developing some emotional intelligence. It's not just what we're receiving and how we feel about it, but the output and how it's affecting others, our family, our organizations, our friends, um, our teams, whatever. And it's developing not only a self-awareness, but an awareness of the impact we have on others, recognizing what is our default um, leadership. uh, I just lost the word leadership, what we're putting out, leadership style, I guess, for lack of any other word. But how are we showing up as leaders, and then evaluating the true effectiveness of that. So I think a lot of times people they think they're doing all the right things, but they don't pause to get any feedback.
Mhm.
you know, how am I being received?
Mhm.
How do I measure my effectiveness? How do others feel when they're around me? And so really developing self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And people, so a lot of times when you ask people, what does emotional intelligence mean? And it means I'm aware of my emotions. Just one piece. It means you're also aware of others' emotions and the impact that it has on your relationships.
Mhm.
So it's doing a lot of deep work on emotional intelligence and gaining perspective of where other people are coming from, and being open to understand and learn about their filters and their perceptions. And so it is kind of like pulling you up and having you look at it from an aerial view, the big picture.
So what's coming up for me is like earlier we were talking about how we can get stuck, and this is kind of what happened to you, where others' expectations, others' judgment, like we start off living the world trying to live up to what others
Mhm.
want us to be doing.
Yeah.
Then at the same time, what we were just talking about is we need others' feedback, whether it's our intuitive sense of how they're receiving us or actual feedback that we're getting, right?
Mhm.
There's like these two camps that are very similar. So I'm wondering, I guess, what the difference is and how you also balance those two things.
In one way, in the first way, when you get stuck by living up to people's expectations, is you're letting them tell you how to be. They're telling you how to be.
Okay.
In the early years, it was be a good girl, do what you're told. And then owning my own business in my 20s, it was be strong, be assertive. and I'm like, I'm a good girl, but I'm, where do I balance that? Whereas emotional intelligence and getting feedback from people is a self-evaluation. I said I wanted to show up this way. I need feedback from you. Did I deliver it in the way that I meant to do it? I have teenagers. You say black, they do white. You say, they're just like all over the place. How they respond shouldn't dictate how I am as a parent. What I know how I want to show up as a parent. And so it's only through the emotional intelligence and understanding her lens or their lens and understanding what are they actually receiving from me. And that's through asking questions, being connected, really listening, putting in those external leadership skills, but then going back and saying, am I really showing up as how I wanted to be? Only you can answer that. So it's the feedback to be a mirror. Am I reflecting what I meant to reflect? Mm. Rather than it being a script or a list of expectations of how you think you should be as a parent.
Yeah, so you determine.
Yeah.
Rather than, I mean, that's the short of it, right? Like before, you're letting everybody else dictate who you should be. Now you get to choose who you want to.
Yeah.
So let's say you get that feedback,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't measure up to your own expectations of
Mm-hmm.
how you want to be showing up. What do you do with that?
You have to go back to your core values. And you have to say, okay, is there a conflict of values here? Is my value of intimacy versus my value of success being challenged? And what do I want to do about it? And nobody else can answer that for you. Only how you want to move forward in that. But it's coming back to that. Well, what do I really want to achieve here? So sometimes I want to be a loving, or it's a value of mine to that my children know that I'm loving and caring. But it's also a value to me that I keep them safe, right? That can sometimes conflict because I know that they're going to receive my actions, even though it's coming from love. They're gonna be pissed off, mm-hmm. Right? It's not fair. Teenagers, their value is independence, so it's a major conflict there. But I can go back and say, okay, I value being connected to my children. I value safety. How am I going to move forward with that? Mm-hmm. I might have to take a hit. I have to be okay that they're going to be upset right now. Right? So your core values allow you to kind of see the bigger picture, mm-hmm. and then just choose how to respond, not react. Mm-hmm. So if I lived my life just always wanting my kids to be happy with me, how well would I honor the other values that I have?
Right. And most importantly, they may not be safe at some point.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot to manage, right? Yeah. If I identify all these values and I want to be this and I want to be that, like to me, the first thing I think about is like, okay, what kind of tracker or org chart like can I create in order to like remind myself of who I am and who I want to be? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you with your clients or you for yourself have a way of organizing and reminding yourself of the values and how you want to show up.
So I encourage my clients to write their values somewhere where they can see them, at least their top 3, where they can see them every day. Either at the top of a piece of paper in their planner or in the margin. But then I also ask them 3 questions. I invite them to ask themselves 3 questions. And I do this exercise every single morning for myself. So I know that it works, at least for me. So I ask myself, what can I do today that's productive?
Mm.
What can I do today that's going to make me feel proud?
Mm.
That's ownership. And what can I purge? And it can either be something tangible or a, a limiting belief or an assumption, that does not serve me, no
Mm.
longer serves me. So you're either clearing clutter physically or mentally or emotionally. And those 3 questions, I answer them with the intent of my core values. And so it's just a check-in. It's just a way to measure that. And then you go through, if you do this daily or if you do it weekly, you check it off. Did I do that thing that I said would make me feel productive? Did I do that thing? Am I proud? Am I proud of my day? Am I proud of my week? It's such a powerful exercise because only you know what's going to make you proud.
Mm.
Yeah. And then the cleansing, letting go.
So I know our viewers are extremely smart, but if you don't rewind that, guys, and write that down, I don't, I'll invite you to do that.
I invite you.
I invite you to rewind and write down.
Yeah. And I can even show you where in my planner where I have that. I truly do it. I don't know how well you can see it, but my core values, I say, remember them. And then I write my 3 core values. What's productive, what's proud, and what can I purge?
Love it.
And I have it in the margin, so I see it every day as I go through my week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge time tracker, priority manager. So my planner is like probably more important to me than even my cell phone. But it just keeps it in your mind. It's constantly playing. And that's how I track it, by answering those 3 questions. And if I know, if I get to the end of the day or the end of the week and I didn't check off each of those 3 things, something got in the way. Something challenged my core values.
Hmm.
And that's a great thing to measure.
So I like the word proud because when I worked with clients a few years ago, I would ask them before they went to bed to answer a number of questions, right? Just to kind of like take inventory of their day. And 2 of the things that I asked were to write down 10 things they were grateful for and 5 things that they were proud of that day. And the feedback I got from my clients, and they would email it to me every night. And the feedback I would get is like, it's so hard to come up with the prouds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was so telling. And I wanted to, you mentioned earlier about cheerleading, like being your own best self cheerleader. And I want to talk about that a little bit because that's a new concept to me. Like when I was growing up, I always looked at the things that I needed to fix, whether it was like myself, like personally myself, or a creative project that I was working on, always came from that perspective and that lens. Most recently, I started thinking about how I can celebrate myself. I went to a seminar and it was pretty powerful. Like this one part of the seminar where this man was up there and he was shaking his butt and he was saying, we got to pat ourselves on the back. And I literally use that with my clients today because like physically touching yourself and whatever you're saying, like, good job, like, way to go, so proud of you, you did something that you didn't think you could do, look at you. Like, there's something about not just saying that, but also like touching ourselves when we're doing that, giving ourselves that self-love that we need. And so when you help your clients celebrate themselves, like, first I'm wondering, is that a foreign concept to them as well? But also second, whether it is or not, how are you celebrating with your clients?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you asked that. I want to back up because when I start doing this with clients, tell me something productive, tell me something you're proud of. and tell me something you're going to purge. I see a lot in women that they're proud of their children, they're proud of, and I say, oh, no, 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 no. This has to be all about you. Tell me something about you that you're proud of, because that's a celebration.
Mm.
You're owning it. No one else, you're not asking anybody else to be proud of you for it. You're not putting your pride in anyone else. You're not making others' success your success. It's great to feel proud of people we love and care about, but we have to also give that to ourselves.
Mm.
Otherwise, you hear this in parents all the time, my children's success is my success.
Mm.
I hate to break it to you, but those kids are going to grow up and they're going to leave home. So you better start doing some self-love now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And your kids are going to do stuff that maybe doesn't make you proud. You have to know and love yourself, and you have to have those feelings about yourself so that you can appreciate when you have them about others as well.
Mm.
Celebrating life, success, wonderful things. You can celebrate others, just don't forget to celebrate yourself.
Mm.
And so when I do that with clients, I hold them to it. This has to be about you. What's productive for you? Well, this weekend I'm going to be really productive by cleaning out the attic because, my husband's been nagging to me all the time. Okay, well, the value isn't in cleaning up the attic. The value is in you don't want your husband nagging at you, right?
Mm.
So tell me something that you're going to feel productive, that when you wipe your hands off, you know that you put in the hard work and you were productive at it.
Mhm.
Tell me something that you're going to celebrate about yourself, and tell me something that no longer serves you. Because when you can identify what no longer serves you, you can let it go.
Yeah, so let's actually take that example of the cleaning of the attic based on the husband's wish, right? So for me, coming from a standpoint of where I help people process their resentments,
Mm-hmm.
that could easily turn into a resentment, right? Because we're basing it on what he wants versus what you want. So shifting the perspective, even if you're going to do that task,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to shift that perspective from this is something that he wants and he's imposing it on you to something where you can now feel proud about it? It's your project. You can own it. How do we shift that mindset on the things that really do need to be done, but they aren't initially our objective or our wish?
Yeah. So cleaning out the attic, I have no value. I see no value in me cleaning the attic. But what are my core values? My first one is intimacy. My second one is appreciation. My third is growth. So if I lead, this is a task that has to be done, but lead with my core values of intimacy, appreciation, and growth. The intimacy is built. I'm going to do this with my husband.
Mm.
I'm going to connect with him. I'm going to go with the thought that this is quality time together because it's important to him and he's important to me,
Mm.
right? Appreciation, by me doing it, I'm telling him I appreciate him and I value him. And I know that I will receive appreciation because it was important to him and he asked me to be part of that. Growth, I'm growing a lot. I'm learning. There's growth in that. I learned how to lead with my core values. I learned how to shift to make this a negative experience to something very positive. That's growth. And if I can get through that, I've grown. Now, hand me a broom, right? There are things that in our life that have to be done. But if we focus on what's broken on it and how yucky it feels, rather than how can this help me? How can I be my best self in this situation? It shifts the whole perspective of it.
Mhm.
you know?
So let's talk about shifting perspective. When you're coming to a close with your clients and they've gotten such value out of the work that they've done with you, you guiding them, what does it look like when you're coming to the end of working with them? What do they look like? New perspectives did they have? What have they learned? All of that great stuff. What does it typically look like?
A lot of self-awareness. They are able to not only see the world and how they're perceiving it, but also they're able to see how what they're putting out into the world. So it's just a really great self-awareness. It's like a mirror on the inside and an aerial view from the top.
Mm.
Um, they are able to identify what perspective they're coming from. You know, they talk about, I was completely in victim thinking. I had my boxing gloves on. I was ready to fight. Or I got totally sucked up in somebody else's drama. They can identify it, and they have words. Sometimes just having the word to identify where we are is empowering, because at least you know where you are, you know. So they're able to identify that. Then they're also able to identify their values and know when they're supporting them and when they're squashing them. They immediately see the conflict or they see the support. They can recognize their saboteurs, their gremlins, things that are sitting on their shoulders and saying all those assumptions and interpretations and limiting beliefs. They're able to say, you know, honor them, recognize how those gremlins have served them in the past, but tell them when to sit down, that they've got this. They don't need, you know, no comments from the peanut gallery. They can say, have a seat. So I think when we come to an end, I know that when we come to an end, they feel very empowered. They know themselves deeper and more intimately than they've ever known themselves. And they know how to not only advocate for themselves, but cheerlead,
Mhm.
you know. And I think that was the biggest shift for me. I truly believed that I had to be my best advocate as I was going, you know, realizing that I had so much turmoil and that I was so unhappy in life. I put those boxing gloves on and I was like, I'm going to fight for it. I'm not going to be a victim. Don't, you know, nobody's going to tell me who to be. And I was a fighter, fighter, fighter. And I didn't know what I was fighting for. I just knew that I didn't want to be what I was, right? But I didn't know who I was. So I got through the fighting and I said, now what? And so then came the cheerleading and the self-discovery. And you know, it's not linear. It's more like zigzaggy. Some days you're going to feel really good and some days you're going to wonder what the heck you're doing. But it's through the grit and the resilience that and getting through it and vulnerability and patience, and trusting in yourself and in the process that, you know, some days you're not going to feel like painting. Some days you're not even going to want to look at it. You're going to say, I don't want to do this. And then some days you just get in your flow and things become very clear to you, but you have to be patient and allow yourself to have the discomfort and then allow yourself to really celebrate the moments, the growth as well.
I love all that. And like, this is such a compelling conversation we're having, and it's so inspiring. And I absolutely can guarantee that there are folks out there that want to work with you. So tell us how we can do that.
Well, you can post my website or you know, join my Leading Ladies group. That's a free group. It's a safe place to just share and collaborate with other women in here. And there are a couple men in there. I do have some male clients. You know, men want to grow too. um, So you can join my group, find me on Facebook, go to my website. I have a really exciting news. I'm releasing a book around Christmas time on developing self-leadership.
Yes.
And so follow that, get on my mailing list, and I give lots of free goodies too. So sometimes I know we just have to kind of let it soak in, and that's okay. That's okay. Just know that I'm here if you have questions or need to talk something through. So I'm pretty easy to find, but you'll post all that stuff with the video, I'm sure.
I will. Yep. So let's set a goal for ourselves.
Okay.
What do you want to accomplish in the short term?
For professionally or personally?
Anything.
Anything. In the short term, I think this is pretty telling because one of my saboteurs is a high achiever. I always have a goal, and right now my goal is to just be in the moment.
Love it.
I don't think I've ever said that in my entire life. I've never said that.
How ironic.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? My goal is to just hold space and be where I am right now, because where I am right now is in such a place of discovery. And I feel like I've just gotten to this beautiful meadow, and I'm setting up my canvas, and I'm ready, and I'm like, I don't even want to think about what's next. I just want to be right here in this moment with my followers and with my clients and with my fellow coaches and with my family and with myself. I just want to like lay down in the meadow and kind of enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. That's very new for me. So I'm okay with that.
I love that. Like the goal is to not have a goal.
Yeah, I joked that 2018 was the year of no success, no achievements. Like that would be an achievement for me. And as you know me, like every year I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And this year, well, I guess the book was kind of a big thing, but that came out very organically. But I just want to be in the moment. That's my goal.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
How about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. So most immediately, so I'm transitioning niches. The releasing resentments is now a part of something bigger that I'm going to be doing. So I need to build a website around this new business.
Mm-hmm.
So I did take a couple days off from work to try to focus on it, and of course things got in the way because life is life. But this weekend I really want to accomplish a framework for the different tabs in my website, and kind of solidify the host that I'm going to be working with, the developer and the host that I'll be working with. So I want to get that done by Monday morning.
Yeah, that is so exciting. You could just see the whole energy of your face. You're like, this is new. Here we go.
It's new and old at the same time. It's so funny how things are like right in front of your face, and it just takes the right person or the right circumstance to just be like, why don't you just hold up a mirror? Because it's right there.
It's right here. It's right here. And I even think when we were working together, I'm like, Rebecca, it's right here.
And you know what? I really appreciated that about you, because that's the beauty of coaching. Like with coaching, we don't tell our clients what to do. We don't tell them their big discovery moments. It takes patience. It takes being in the moment, as you were just saying, to just let that unfold naturally and gently guide them to a point of where they can realize that. And, I actually wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing now, this new adventure I'm on. I wouldn't have been able to do that without your help.
Oh, that is very kind.
Yeah. And I set out to see a different perspective of myself, and we achieved that. Yeah. And it's been extremely beneficial for me. Yeah. I might not have even been doing Transforming Today show if it wasn't for that. Who knows? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that journey with me. And I mean, just from an outsider looking in, your growth has been tremendous. tremendous. So I remember when you were like, I don't even want to get out there.
And I was like,
I
yeah,
don't do that.
yeah, I didn't, yeah. I mean, we all go through periods of not knowing exactly what we want to do. And then one day we wake up and we're like, I know exactly what I want to do and I'm going to do it now.
Yes,
So,
right now.
so, well, as we're thanking each other, I want to also thank you for being on today. It was a true pleasure to have you, AliceAnn, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot from you. So I'm gonna really take those nuggets, especially you guys have to rewind to that one part that AliceAnn gave you those 3 questions. Those are very, very helpful. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna adopt those as well, and I'll be working on those as my homework. I'll add
Great.
that.
Let me know what they are. Now I can support you in them.
Awesome.
Remember, they're all about you. They're all about you. Nobody else.
Love it. All right, my dear. Well, thank you so much for being on. And at this point, we are going to thank our viewers. Thank you guys for being here. This was another wonderful episode of Transforming Today Show. I'm so glad you were here with us. And we will throw another one out there next week. So have a wonderful, wonderful day and make it a great one. Thanks, guys. Thanks, AliceAnn. Bye. I know I was thinking about it and I was like, we work from home and we are either on the phone or on Zoom. And I'm like, I wonder if people wonder what our bottom half looks like.
Yeah. Don't ask me to stand up.
Am I wearing sweatpants right now? I don't know.
Am I even wearing pants?
Anything off the table?
Not that I can think of. I'm pretty open. Just don't ask me to stand up.
All right. I won't if you won't. You've got it packed.
Yeah.
Okay.